mitigated, AI is not necessarily fair because it could, quote, exacerbate existing disparities or systematic biases. That is a Bowdlerized way of policing speech on climate change, transgenderism, immigration, and political topics. Elsewhere, NIST called workplace DEI czars critical and suggested companies consider whether AI chatbots might amplify historical, societal, and systemic biases.
That was a classic Ted Cruz hearing. One thing you have to give Senator Ted Cruz credit for is that he comes prepared. Instead of chasing headlines, Cruz focused on holding the nominees accountable and making them clearly explain where they stand. Whether it was AI, government overreach, or America's future in space, every question had a purpose. I'm Wilson, and this is America Wake. If you enjoy honest political reactions and breakdowns of the biggest moments shaping America, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Now let's get into it.
Also wanted to point out that the Air Force Academy has more astronauts than Purdue.
Fantastic.
Touché.
For the record, Colombians are much faster than Cubans.
They're also more likely to be drug dealers. This is an age-old battle between Cubans and Colombians. I seem to have stepped in the middle of some battle here. And while we are comparing connections to the moon, I will point out one of the very first words uttered on the surface of the moon was my hometown of Houston. Houston, the Eagle has landed. And that, all right, let's get into, Dr. Rahman, let's start with you. The first Trump administration's AI initiative emphasized NIST's role in developing basic measurement standards for AI. Under the Biden administration, NIST used its authorities to inspect AI systems for risks from bias and misinformation. At the time, NIST claimed that even when, quote, harmful biases are mitigated, AI is not necessarily fair because it could, quote, exacerbate existing disparities or systematic biases. That is a Bowdlerized way of policing speech on climate change, transgenderism, immigration, and political topics. Elsewhere, NIST called workplace DEI czars critical and suggested companies consider whether AI chatbots might amplify historical, societal, and systemic biases. NIST testing standards became a Trojan horse for progressive social policies with the goal of controlling American speech. Dr. Rahman, does NIST have any role in using its measurement and non-regulatory roles to regulate AI speech or to engage in censorship?
No, it does not.
Do you commit to reorienting NIST to its apolitical mission and ensuring that it does not serve as an engine for divisive left-wing ideology, even under the guise of, quote, safety or increasing trust in technology?
I do, Senator.
Thank you. Do you also commit to maintaining NIST as a strictly non-regulatory agency that works through voluntary consensus-based standards?
I do, Senator.
Thank you. All right. NIST often touches on strategic supply chains, such as for semiconductors and critical minerals. Recently, NIST executed letters of intent whereby the federal government would take equity ownership in semiconductor and critical minerals companies, an approach that deviates from NIST's traditional role. Consider critical mineral mining, a complex, complicated industry where sometimes it takes over 20 years to discover mineral deposits, to verify them, to build the needed infrastructure, and to receive the required licenses and permits. Would you agree that federal equity deals tie up taxpayer dollars for a considerable amount of time with no guaranteed return on investment?
Senator, I'm not in the role, so I don't know the details of what may or may not have happened in this case, but I'm committed to making sure that NIST makes best use of resources provided by Congress to advance semiconductor manufacturing and leadership globally.
If NIST holds equity in an underperforming or failing company? Could the government be pressured to use taxpayer dollars to hedge losses? Is NIST equipped to make these decisions to protect U.S. taxpayer funds?
Again, Senator, not being in the role, I don't know the details of what may or may not have transpired, so I'm really not in a position to answer that.
In complex sectors like critical minerals, companies often struggle against international competition. Since government ownership comes with risks and taxpayers could end up covering losses, wouldn't it make sense for the government to streamline permitting and encourage domestic competition instead of trying to own and subsidize these companies?
Thank you for that question, Senator. Again, this is outside, I think, the swim lane of NIST, but I'm happy to follow up in conversations about what the role of innovation might be in critical materials processing and manufacturing.
Mr. Anderson, if you are confirmed, describe for this committee what you hope and expect NASA to do regarding the moon.
Senator, I hope and expect that NASA continues to quickly execute the President's national space policy that has been completely supported by yourself, and as we saw yesterday, this entire committee, and we appreciate that at NASA. I think they expect NASA to exercise leadership, talk about space superiority. If you look at that executive order that the President laid out, it was not just national security, it was NASA. There was a whole lot of government parts to that, and there was an order from the President that said, hey, we're going to make sure American space superiority is ensured. It has been backed up by funding. It has been backed up by authorizations and appropriations, and I think that's what the American public expects.
What level of priority would you put to beating China to the moon?
The absolute highest priority, Senator.
That would be the right answer, so I'm glad to hear it. Discuss also the importance of maintaining and keeping astronauts in low Earth orbit as we transition from the International Space Station to commercial space stations.
Thank you, Senator. It's absolutely critical. The first word of the ISS is international, and that means we have a lot of partners invested in this. And it's also competition with China. Our adversary is already in low Earth orbit. We cannot cede American leadership in low Earth orbit.
Well, thank you to both of the witnesses. My final question is required of all nominees. If confirmed, do you pledge to work collaboratively with this committee to provide thorough and timely responses to the committee's requests and to appear before the committee when requested?
Yes. I do.
Thank you. I have 45 letters of support from various organizations for the nomination of Mr. Anderson. I ask unanimous consent that these letters be inserted into the hearing record without objection, so ordered. Senators will have until the close of business on Saturday, March 7th to submit questions for the record. The nominees will have until the close of business on Tuesday, March 10th to respond to those questions. And with that, that concludes today's hearing. The committee stands adjourned.
After watching the full hearing, I think Ted Cruz did exactly what a senator is supposed to do during a confirmation hearing. He wasn't there to make a speech. He was there to get answers and put commitments on the record. The first topic was artificial intelligence and NIST. Cruz questioned whether the agency had drifted away from its original mission by getting involved in issues that many Americans see as political. His point was simple. NIST should be setting technical standards, not deciding what speech is acceptable. I liked that Cruz didn't dance around the issue. He asked Dr. Robin directly if NIST should regulate speech or engage in censorship. The answer was no. Cruz then asked if NIST would remain an apolitical, non-regulatory agency, and Dr. Robin agreed. That is exactly why these hearings matter. Once those promises are made publicly, people can hold officials accountable. The conversation then shifted to government investments in semiconductor and critical mineral companies. Cruz raised a fair question. Should taxpayers be taking on the risk of government ownership in private companies? If those investments fail, who pays the price? Dr. Robin explained that the issue was outside the scope of the current role, but I still think Cruz was right to ask. These are the kinds of questions Congress should be asking before billions of taxpayer dollars are put at risk. Then the hearing moved to NASA, and I thought this was one of the strongest moments. When Cruz asked Mr. Anderson how important it is for America to beat China back to the moon, the answer came without hesitation. It should be the highest priority. That exchange says a lot. Space is no longer just about exploration. It's about technology, national security, and maintaining America's leadership in the world. Cruz also stressed the importance of keeping Americans in low Earth orbit as NASA transitions from the International Space Station to commercial space stations. That is a strategic issue that could shape America's future in space for years to come. Another thing I noticed was how organized Cruz's questioning was. Every question built on the last one. He identified a concern, asked for a clear commitment, and moved on. It made the hearing easy to follow and left little room for vague answers. Whether you agree with Ted Cruz on every issue or not, I think this hearing showed why oversight matters. Confirmation hearings are supposed to test nominees, challenge their views, and make sure the public knows where they stand before they take office. To me, Ted Cruz did exactly that. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Ted Cruz asked the right questions about AI, government accountability, and America's leadership in space? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this reaction, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to America Wake, and I'll see you in the next one.